There we go. I think we are now officially live on I wish I could say a sunny Friday morning. But welcome everybody to another Quick Step to Happier Customers episode. And as you can see on the screen, I am joined by the fantastic, awesome, wonderful, there aren't enough adjectives to describe you, Clayton, and good mate as well. I'm sure many of you that will be joining us or watching the recording will also be following Clayton as well, I've got no doubt. But yeah, before we sort of, start with the sort of introductions and get things sort of going, because I know often it takes a couple of minutes for people to join us live, as we are, well, both living in Britain. We have to get the weather talk out of the way, don't we? Let's hope that some people who are joining us live outside the UK and they've got lovely sunshine. But I know, Clayton, that you're off to hopefully, which will be sunny Brighton, aren't you, after this? So thank you ever so much for giving us some time this morning before you head off on your travels.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. Thanks very much for having me. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you, and we are good mates. And yeah, I'm off to Brighton. We've got some South African mates that live on the west side of London, and we had this great idea to book a long weekend camping in Brighton. So we are camping, and camping in the sun is very different to camping in the rain. So we're going to see how it goes. My wife was scrambling yesterday, trying to buy a small heater fan, because we realized, oh darn, we don't have something to warm up the tent. It's going to be cold out there. And it just feels like it's been the longest winter ever. I mean, I can't remember. I don't know what's going on.
It's just... Let's hope we're going to be rewarded with the best summer ever when it finally arrives. But we are joined by Hubby. He sat in the other room, so he says good morning, Clayton.
Morning.
But yes, if there's anybody else joining us live, because that is one of the downsides or frustrating things with doing a LinkedIn Live, isn't it, Clayton? Because I know you do your own as well. We can't see who's joining us unless you pop a little hello in the comments. So please do let us know. Just a quick good morning, hello. But of course, we welcome your questions as well as we're going through this. And apologies in advance. Again, sometimes doesn't always show everybody's comments, and we were talking about this, Clayton, weren't we, until after the live is over, and then we can see all these comments that people have posted. So apologies in advance if we don't say hello back to you or we don't answer your question. It's simply because of a technical issue, and we may not be able to have seen it while the live was happening. But hopefully we will get a few people joining us this morning, Clayton. But would you like to introduce yourself more formally to whoever's listening right now?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Clayton. I'm originally, as you can hear, from South Africa. I own my own company called Growth Crew, and I'm a leadership mentor. So these days, the last 2 years, I work with companies and their leaders, and on a mentorship basis. So usually it's on a one-to-one basis. And that's where the magic really happens. I do some training, some leadership training, but it's the one-to-one mentorship that I really get the buzz from when you see those aha moments. So that's what I really enjoy. And yeah, I've spent 18 years working in the contact center industry, and then left the industry to start my own business. And since then, I've been working with all sorts of different companies. That's me in a nutshell.
Great introduction there, Clayton, and I know how passionate you are about leadership. And for those of you that have joined us, and of course this is episode 7 of Quick Step to Happier Customers, where we talk all things service excellence, and you may be thinking, okay, what has leadership got to do with potentially an agent or somebody who's working in social media, communicating with customers, whatever channel your businesses offer to your customers to communicate with? You might be thinking, well, what have leaders got to do with that end service that's delivered to customers? And that's really what we're going to be chatting about this morning. So we have got a few more people joining us. I can see Alan has jumped on. So he's saying hello to us. So thank you very much for joining us, Alan. And then my apologies in advance. I'm going to try and pronounce this name. It is somebody I know very well, but we've never actually spoken, so I've never been able to check how the name is pronounced. But is it Irna or an alternative to to that. It's Iryna. So she'll know who I'm talking to. She's coming to us here, joining us here from Ukraine. So you're absolutely very welcome. But my apologies. I probably said that name completely wrong. But hopefully I've given it a giggle anyway. But shall we get started then, Clayton, in terms of, obviously, let's have a chat about where leaders come into this whole service excellence that we talk about. And something I know we both talk about on a regular basis is culture. So let's start with that in terms of how you think leaders influence the culture within any organization, whether that's B2B, B2C, contact centers, or any other environment.
Yeah, well, they play a massive role. If they, leaders, it's an incredibly important role leaders play in the culture, because they influence the creation of that environment people find themselves in. Leaders play a huge role in creating that environment people are in. So if you're on the end and you're delivering the customer service, be that on an email or social media or on a phone in a contact center, as a leader, you create the environment for that person to feel like what they're doing is important, to feel valuable, to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves, feel like they belong, and for them to want to do that. You play an important part. And, in a culture, John Amici says that in his book, On the Promises of Giants, that a culture is defined by all those choices that are made every single day by all the people that work in that company. As a leader, you cannot be in every conversation. You cannot talk to every customer. You cannot send every email. You cannot design every design that's going to be sent out. You can't be everywhere. And you certainly cannot make every single decision that's being made in the business. I'm not talking about the big decisions, like should we buy Apple this week? No, not that decision. But I'm talking about the decisions your team have. So say, for example, it is 10 minutes to go before home time, before you log off at home or you leave the office, depending on where you work. It's 10 minutes to go, and you're thinking to yourself, do I finish this design for the marketing team so they can get this copy sent out to the customers? Or do I open Instagram and kill 10 minutes? Now, as a leader, you influence the environment and to a point that decision. Because if that person is in an environment where they know what they're doing right now matters so much to not just the marketing team, but the customers too, and that they play an incredible part in the success of the business, they will want to do that and make the choice to finish the design and send it to marketing. But if they're in an environment where they don't feel valued, their leaders never meet with them, they don't know what the game plan is, no one's ever said to them that their contribution is valuable, might as well open Instagram and just kill time so I can go home. So you influence those decisions as a leader. That's massive. So yeah, you play a very important role.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And something you've just touched on there, Clayton, that links into some of the things I've been talking about recently, because you talked about, finishing, spending that time in it, 10 minutes, finishing something that's going to help somebody in another team, another department. You mentioned marketing. And I often, I keep banging the drum about the importance of internal service excellence, i.e. recognizing the part you play and the impact that you have on other teams, other departments, and departments collaborating, getting rid of the silos that exist in many departments. And what do you think are some of the key things that leaders can do to contribute in a positive way to creating that internal service excellence culture? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. Number one is reflect. I like to tell leaders to hover above their role like a helicopter. I know that sometimes, and I'm sure you get this too, Jackie, but so many of the leaders I work with haven't got time, right? There's no time for anything, right? But if you can just find 15 minutes, 1-5, in your day, in your week, to just reflect on your team, your role, who you service, and look at the role, look at the tasks your team have to complete. How best are they completing those tasks? Who's doing what? And can you streamline things? So many times as leaders, we get stuck in this rut of we got no time, but we always do things the same way they've always been done. So we never think that maybe there's a better way, or we don't, like you say, there's silos, and we don't really involve ourselves with other departments because they could help, right?
Yeah.
Also, leaders come to a department or become leaders into a team, and they still carry all the small things they used to do from that role. So, for example, they go into a leadership role and now they've got a new team, but they still do things, a task that people always asked them to do with it when they were in that role. I call them legacy tasks, and they don't let go of those things. So first of all, hover above yourself as a helicopter, identify what it is your team is doing, who their customers are, who can help, which departments, legacy and the things you shouldn't be doing right now because you're taking away from other people's development and challenges. Identify that first, and then secondly, meet with the team and discuss that game plan. Make it known to every single person why your team exists, what your team wants to achieve, and why your team wants to achieve that. What's the purpose of your team, and how do we achieve that? Who is our customer? Is it IT? If IT is our customer or marketing is our customer, how do we best service marketing? Who can help us? How can we break down silos? So yeah, first of all, they need to, it's small, I call it small term pain, because leaders, it's painful for leaders to remove themselves just a few minutes. Just remove yourself, small term pain for long term gain. Remove yourself for a couple of minutes and just reflect on, is this the best way we can do things? And how can I get the team talking about this all the time? Because when you share that game plan, you're bringing the team closer to feel part of it. You're bringing the team in. And at every occasion, on every interaction, you're talking about the game plan. What are we doing? So everyone lives and breathes it. That's when they feel part of something. And we know this from all the training we've done and all the books we've read, that people have a need to belong to something. And when we belong to something, we just perform better. That's scientifically proven.
Yeah, it is, as I say, and hopefully anybody that's watching this or joining us now doesn't need any convincing of that, as you say, because there is so much in terms of research, studies, books that we can read that all, say the same thing. I can't think of anything that I've ever come across that says something completely opposite to that. No, because it just doesn't exist. But you were talking about, knowing who your customer is, and you mentioned, for example, that might be IT. How important do you think it is to get an understanding of not just your own role, but also understanding of your internal customers' challenges and understanding their roles in order to develop empathy for another colleague or another team or another department? And I talk about, one of the key things that can help to create understanding between teams and to create a better level of empathy between teams. So teams understand each other's roles better, they understand each other's challenges better, and therefore want to support each other. Is one of the key things I talk about is being able to have the opportunity to job shadow. Now, I'm not going to name companies, but certainly some of the companies I was employed with in my career, there was at least 2 that I did never see job shadowing opportunities happening, and some that absolutely I saw it working really, really well. I'd love your thoughts on that in terms of, again, how leaders can influence that, if you think it's important.
Yeah, I think, leaders, there's a responsibility there. You are the voice of your team, and you are a voice to, even I was in a business recently where some of the departments, the leaders I was talking with or training in those departments were telling me that they don't feel that the senior leadership team cares much for their department. But whose role is it to talk about that with those senior leaders? As uncomfortable as it may be, it's the leader's role. It's your responsibility. So just like that, it's your responsibility to know that if your customers are different constituents in the business, it's up to you to find out how best to serve those people. And it's just, communication. So often, and Jackie, you would work with leaders in different companies too. I work with leaders in companies. And often when I get leaders from the same company in one room, we realize they've always been like ships in the night. They work in the same company. They're leaders at the same level inside that company, but they don't have a clue what's going on in each other's department and what will make each other happy. What's the ultimate goal for both sides. And a good example of that would always be from what I always used to find was in the contact centers I worked in, is we had some incredible IT departments with really talented individuals that will design systems that were just, you couldn't fathom how clever these people are, but they never met with us the user, right? So when we launched this incredible product, it was great for the customer, but the user, us, the contact center agents and the team leaders didn't have, it was so backwards. And they were like, but no one ever talked to us about it. And so often there's this ego that we shouldn't have to talk to you. We can design it and you should use it. But we're not going to, don't have a fear that the user is going to change the whole design or tell you what to do. The user is just there to say, this won't work because I work with it every day. I'm not saying what you're doing should change. So it's one of those things that happens quite often. But just to get back to your question, from leaders' perspective, it is about having those kinds of discussions, those roundtables with other leaders, bringing your team closer to other teams, and finding out how you can help each other. And also knowing their goal. Why do they exist? What do they want to achieve? And how can we support them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think quite a shocking sort of percentage when I saw it recently. I know mycustomer.com reported that around 40% of employees said they felt siloed because they, from their perspective, felt that departments had their own agendas. And, that links into what you were just talking about there. So, I think in terms of, as I say, leaders in, across the organization coming together, just talking to each other and understanding each other's challenges. But as you say, everybody in that business understanding, their purpose, in terms of that why that we often talk about, isn't it? In terms of everything is driven from, in terms of our behaviors, our mindset, our actions is driven from having a clear purpose of what we're trying to achieve. And let's face it, everybody in an organization should all be trying to work towards the same purpose. They're all doing different jobs. They all have different tasks to do. But if you've got departments working to their own agendas, then how on earth is that company, in terms of the organization, going to deliver great service to their customers?
Exactly. I was as you were talking, it reminded me of something. When I first started as a leader back in 2005, I remember, being responsible for the way my team felt about compliance. Because when I had a meeting with compliance, I would come back to my desk, I'd throw my papers down, roll my eyes and go, compliance, what are those guys on about? And as the leader, what I was doing was sending a very clear message to all my people about what they should feel about compliance, those idiots in compliance. So I made a huge mistake, and I drove that silo, as a leader. And we can do that as leaders. We come back and we talk about another department. We roll our eyes at a suggestion they're making, or a communication comes out from financial services saying something. We roll our eyes. We are painting a very clear picture and sending a very clear message to our people about how we feel about that department, and they'll feel the same way because we're their leaders. So it's we have to be very careful and very self-aware that we're able to influence that kind of feeling as well.
And I think that's, it's refreshing as well, Clayton, to hear you, because I know as we can be seen as, I know often we use that word experts. I'm still not sure whether anybody should call themselves an expert, because it almost says that you're done now, you've learned it all, you're such an expert, there is no more learning to do. But in terms of just listening to you sort of talking about in an honest way that actually a leader isn't going to be from day one that person that does everything right. We learn from our mistakes. You've reflected, I'm sure, throughout your career and thought, actually, what impact am I having here? How is that facial expression, that roll in the eyes, what impact that might have? And I guess that leads me to just thinking about how important you think it is for leaders to, and I know we've already said that they're super busy, but how important is it, do you think, for a leader to fit into their weekly schedule that reflection time?
Oh, it's massive. It's massive because it works on so much self-awareness. You can reflect on what are you doing? How are you serving your people? How did you, the discussions you had? I always like to ask myself two questions. At the end of the day, when I was in charge, I used to ask myself, what did I do well today as a leader? And what could I have done better? It takes 5 minutes for you to be able to establish what you did well. What you did well, think about why do you think it's a good thing that you did it? What effect did it have on who and why? And then keep doing that. And if you think there's things you could have done better, what would you do next time you had that opportunity? How would you change it? What would you do differently? And that's how you learn. And you also, by doing that, it's a great coaching tool for yourself on your own people. So you can ask them, what did you think you did well today or this month or this quarter? And what would you have changed? If there's anything you'd like to do differently, what would you do next time? And that's how you learn with them and celebrate with them their victories. So as a leader, reflection is incredibly important. That self-awareness, that situations you were in, it's so important to be able to look back at them and think about those. I'm a big advocate of reflection.
Yeah, and I love the fact as well that you started with the positive. What have we done well? What is my to a team member, what have you done well? Because in my experience, again, and I've observed lots of team leaders doing one-to-ones, and I would say 90% of the time they may start with that very generic open question, or how's it going, or how's your week been, or how's your month been, whatever, however often they have their one-to-ones. Or, how are things? Just that type of question. And 99% of the time, team members respond with a negative. Because if something is going wrong in their day or in their week, or something's just happened, that's where your mindset is. And before you know it, you're starting with a negative conversation. So a little change to that question, and you've just done it there, Clayton, is what have been your successes? What have gone well at the start of a conversation? So you're asking somebody to focus on the positives, not take a risk that suddenly they're going to come up with something negative. So yeah, absolutely agree with you on that. And a lot of things we've talked about so far have been around, obviously, how a leader can really influence that culture, and obviously encourage that collaboration across departments. But I don't think we can have this type of LinkedIn Live without talking about, the happy employees equals the happy service. And again, there's lots of research around this. And I was reading a Harvard Business Review that was based on a Glassdoor report, which showed that I think it was an increase in a 1-star improvement rating for a company equated to, I think it was something like 1.3 or 1.4 increase in points for customer service. So, that's just one report that shows that correlation. But again, I'd love your thoughts on that, and particularly what, 3 steps that you think leaders could focus on doing over coming weeks to create that environment where you've got that happy team equaling the happy service.
Yeah, it's the basics. For me, I always say to leaders when I first start working with them, what is the dream outcome? Where do you want to? What would make you happy? If you look back and say in the last 3 months or 2 months, or what would be your dream outcome? And whatever they say, I always say it doesn't have to be money or title. It could be that you want to be a great motivator, or it could be that in 3 months from now you want to delegate 5 of your tasks to your team members to challenge and develop them. Whatever your dream outcome is, reverse engineer it to where you are today, and what can you commit to today to make that happen. One of the things I always push into one of the objectives is discretionary effort from your people, where they go above and beyond what's asked of them because they want to. That for me is the aha for any leader. To get people to do that is the aha. Now, how do you do that is not rocket science, but it takes a lot of consistent behavior from you as a leader. That's the one-to-one check-in. So I would start with remembering to bring people into something. So think about yourself and those people in your life that you like hanging around or being in their company. It could be in your personal capacity. It could be at work. I can guarantee you that the people you like being in their company or hanging around with, they make you feel good about yourself. And I can guarantee you some of their characteristics are they're great listeners. They are interested and genuinely curious about your well-being. And they are asking, how things are going. They're interested in you as a person. That makes you feel really good about yourself. So as a leader, be mindful that you can be that person that people are drawn to and love being around because you make them feel good about themselves. And it's simple: listen, be curious and genuinely interested in their development, because as a leader, you play a massive role in development. So I would start by taking you into your mindset to say, how can I get everyone to feel part of something here? How can I get people to feel part of something bigger than themselves, to want to do well here? How do I do that? I need to make them feel like they're part of something. That you do by sharing the game plan, like we spoke about earlier. That you do in your interactions with them by listening and being genuinely curious, telling them in a one-to-one meeting how valuable their contributions are, but really outlining it as to what they could, what they do and how it matters to other people, because that brings meaning to them. When someone finds that what they do is meaningful and it matters to other people, it will bring them more joy and satisfaction. And when it brings them more joy and satisfaction, they will enjoy doing it, look forward to doing it, and they will naturally excel at it. And you want that feeling for people. You want that feeling that they wake up in the morning and go, yes, I'm going to work. So how do you get them to feel that way as a leader? And it's really those small things of making people feel valued, listening to them, bringing them part of the team, sharing the game plan, giving them the chance to speak up, making it a safe environment. So it's all about the environment. If you can make that environment one that works. No, I don't often work anymore with call center agents. But as a call center agent, the purpose for a call center agent is not as tangible as the purpose of a doctor or a chef. But a call center agent has the ability to brighten up someone's day, to make someone feel really good about themselves. And that can be something you can aim for. And as a call center agent, if you can get people to feel that they really matter to people, that they're doing something extra. In the contact center I worked in many years ago, we used to sell holidays. Now that's quite easy. It's quite a nice thing to sell, a holiday, especially if there was availability. If there's no availability, there's not a good thing to sell. But when there's availability, it's a really nice thing to sell. And we did that, that was one of the messages I had with the team leaders, is to build a purpose behind what everybody does here. And if you think about, and we told the agents, if you think about your customer, you playing a massive role in the holiday they're booking, in the photos they're going to be taking, in the meals they're going to be eating, in the things they're going to be seeing in their holiday. You are playing a role there. And that's massive. And when you feel part of that and you feel so important and vital in that booking process, we used to hear some of the agents telling the customers, what would you like to smell on your holiday? They got so involved into the customer's experience that that's what they felt part of it. And it's building meaning behind what people do. So as a leader, if you can influence that, how do you build meaning behind what your people do? Make them feel valuable, bring them closer to the game plan, let them understand why you're here and why you exist as a team, and make them feel like they're part of it. They will want to do better. They will feel accountable. They will feel ownership towards what they do, because what they do matters to other people in the team, and they're a massive contributor. That example we had earlier, that person that's finishing the design work, they'll feel part of it, and they'll want to finish it so that their side is done and they've contributed. And that's the feeling you want to get.
I couldn't have said that best of myself, Clayton. And starting my career early, in the early days, on the phones, in the contact center, it's one of the most stressful, one of the most challenging roles that I've ever done, because you're often just customer after customer after customer. And so that feeling valued, feeling a part of the business in terms of knowing what, what value I'm bringing every single day, really coming to work fired up to want to give my very best every day. That's when you can, I think, deal with the stresses and the challenges more effectively, because you understand why you're doing what you do. You understand how you're impacting your customer, and therefore, yes, you understand that customers will have frustrations when things go wrong, but it's really, knowing just what positive impact you can have on that customer. And that's why I often say to team leaders, coaching isn't just about the formal one-to-ones. It's that opportunity when an agent comes to you and says, I've got this customer on the phone, this is what's happened, what do you suggest that I do? And rather than just jumping in as a team leader and saying what you think, your agent is the person that's spoken to that customer, not you as the team leader. And if an agent actually feels valued, feels inspired to want to give their very best, when you ask the agent, what would you want to see happen next? What do you think should be the solution? If you were that customer, what would you expect? What would you want? 9 times out of 10, your advisor will know the answer to that question. And all they actually are doing when they come to you is to get that reassurance. They don't really want you to provide the solution. They just want you to show them that you value their experience. They know the answer, what the right thing is to do for that customer. All you need to do is ask and give that reassurance. But too many times what I've seen in that situation, because it's quicker, give the agent advice, give the agent a solution, off they go, they sit back down, and then they offer it to the customer. But there's an opportunity missed there to show that you value the advisor, your team members' experience. I thought that was going to happen to me on at least one LinkedIn Live, Clayton.
I don't know. It must be my phone connected to my PC. Sorry about that.
But, and I'm not saying this about obviously a brand new advisor, but your experienced team members, when they come to you, there's an opportunity there to just ask a couple of coaching questions. What do they think? What ideas have they got? If they were that customer, what would they want? And I can guarantee 9 times out of 10, your advisor will have an answer to that.
Yeah, 100%.
And what you're looking for is that reassurance. You just to say, yeah, well done. That's what I would do as well. And there's an opportunity, I think, to then really show that value and to show that you're there to listen rather than to be the problem solver or the person that's just going to jump in and give a quick solution. So we've come to that sort of 30-minute mark, Clayton. I can't let you go. I know you're eager to get off to Brighton, but I can't let you go without. And of course, just before we do go, before I ask Clayton this very last question, if anybody is listening or watching this and wants to pop in a quick question, then absolutely do that before we finish today. But yeah, I guess it would be good just to leave anybody that's watching right now or watching the recording, just to leave with a couple of steps that you think that in the coming week, once we've got the bank holiday over with, what would you recommend anybody in any leadership role, whether that's team leader, ops manager, senior manager, what would you recommend 2 things that they could take with them into next week and to put into action if they don't do it right now?
1, do some reflection. Reflect on your own performance, and where could you be more effective and efficient and help team members, so that you're in the moment with every interaction with a team member. How can you do some reflection? Start doing reflection. You don't have to do it every day, but at least once a week. Give yourself at least 15 minutes to do some reflection. Hover above your role as a helicopter, look down, and try and reflect on what the tasks are your teams are busy with and how best to do those tasks, and are they doing it as best they can, and then involve the team. And the second thing I would say is, don't wait for the mid-year appraisals to meet with your team or the end-of-year appraisals. Something that I used to do is keep a folder of all the people in my team, and everything they did well, I'll obviously talk to them about it there and then, but I'll also write it down in a folder. So my second thing would be to meet with your team members. One-to-ones do not have to be a formal event with an agenda. They can be a 15-minute power session. Get some questions you'd like to ask beforehand, but really use those meetings, those one-to-one meetings, to gain insights on where your people are at. What makes them tick and where are they mentally at? So you can ask questions like, hey, what are you proud of the first quarter of this year so far? Or what are you proud of in April? What was it in April that you were proud of doing? That's one question you could ask to break the ice. And then the second question you could ask is, what's one thing you'd love for me to ask you to do in the next quarter, because you're brilliant at it, but I've actually never asked you to do it? And you can back that one up by saying, what's one thing you don't want me to ask you to do because you don't like doing it or you're not sure how to do it? And just like that, you're going to gain some incredible insights on your team members when you can then challenge and develop them. And when you are interested in someone's development and someone's well-being, they're going to be drawn to you because you make them feel good about themselves. And that's when you get the best out of people. So from there, when you know those insights and you've gained those insights on people, your role is supportive. So next time you have a one-to-one, you are going to be supportive about what you discussed last time. How are things going? And you're going to follow up. And one of the things you have to do as a leader is give yourself your own KPI on how many of your one-to-ones you actually stick to, because it's very easy to cancel one and then let them all be canceled. And life happens, and you can't always make every single one-to-one you've scheduled. But give yourself a KPI, 85%, 90%, whatever it is, to stick to those one-to-ones. And they don't have to be an hour long, because then they become a schlep. And if you've got 14 people in a team, 1 hour each, you're going to do once, and then you're going to get tired of them because they do take a long time. Keep them short, but keep them powerful.
Love it, Clayton. Two fantastic steps, I think. And particularly the reflection one, relevant to us all, isn't it? That's important as a business owner, whatever your job role is, fitting in that reflection. Otherwise, we as human beings, we have our habit forming people, aren't we? We go week upon week doing the same thing because that's what our subconscious mind drives us towards. So building in that reflection, regardless of what role you're in, I think is such a vital step for anybody to take. But Clayton, before we go, how can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more about the work that you do, or just jump on a conversation with you? What's the best way for them to get in touch?
The best way is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, they can contact me through our direct message, or if you look at my LinkedIn featured posts, you will find you're able to book a call with me too if you want to chat. I'm always happy to chat, ask any questions. So LinkedIn would be the best, Jackie.
And thank you, those of you that have joined us live today. I haven't been able to see any more comments, so I'm hoping that's because there aren't any. But my apologies if you have been typing questions. But if you have, we'll see them after the live, and I will respond. But of course, if anybody wants to have a chat with myself at any point, then again, same as Clayton, you'll find us both on LinkedIn on a daily basis. But it's just for me to say thank you ever so much for giving up your Friday morning to spend chatting to me, Clayton. Have a fantastic long bank holiday weekend and I am going to say sunny Brighton. It's going to be. Let's have a bit of positive thinking on a Friday. And for those of you that haven't checked out my Friday playlist post yet, why not go there now? There's some great tunes for you to play throughout the day. Perhaps on your car journey, Clayton.
Yes.
So my next LinkedIn Live will be 2 weeks' time on the 17th. Another fantastic guest. Watch this space to find out who it is. But thank you, everybody, for joining. And if you're watching on the recording, do give us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you as well. But that's it for another Quick Step to Happier Customers episode. Whatever you're up to for the weekend, have a fantastic one.
Bye.